Joining me tonight, Vishnu Shom and Sunetra Chaudhary through this special programming. And Vishnu, you were there at that briefing there. We saw a joint military briefing by the Army, Navy and Indian Air Force. Sum up for us the most important bits of what they said this evening in that unprecedented briefing.
Well, details of this were broken by NDTV at 5 p.m. today, both on NDTV 24/7 and on NDTV.com. And a large part of this was repeated at that press conference by three very senior officials. Firstly, they confirmed what we have reported, the nature of the air encounter which took place along the line of control yesterday, in which 20 plus Pakistan Air Force aircraft were intercepted by 8 Indian Air Force aircraft. They also mentioned the circumstances in which Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman engaged a Pakistani F-16. He had to eject, but not before he shot down an F-16. 2 AMRAAM missiles were fired by Pakistani F-16s. One of them struck Abhinandan's aircraft. Another one missed as it tried to hit his wingman. Debris of that second missile was recovered from the Rajouri side of Jammu and Kashmir, and it was presented in the press conference today. The missile is an American AIM-120 C-5 missile, one of the most advanced in the world. The only aircraft that can use it is the Pakistani F-16. This confirms the involvement of the Pakistani F-16. Very importantly, the AMRAAM missile was not cleared by the United States for use against India. It was specifically meant to be used on targets potentially against terrorism and against Afghanistan. People wondered at that time, what would you need an air-to-air missile for if you were targeting terrorist elements? But it was given in that context, and the use of this missile, one way or the other, against the Indian Air Force clearly violates Pakistan's arrangement with the United States for the provision of this weapon.
That's a very interesting point, Vishnu, and let's just wait and see what the American reaction is to that. There is likely to be some blowback really on Pakistan using that AMRAAM missile, the evidence there being shown at that briefing. Let's just listen to what the joint briefing highlights were.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On 27th February 2019, at around 1000 hours, Indian Air Force radars detected a large package of Pakistan Air Force aircraft heading towards the Indian territory, towards general area Jangar. They breached the Indian airspace west of Rajouri in the Sundarbani area. The ingressing aircraft were observed to be at various levels. IAF fighters, including MiG-21 Bison, Sukhoi 30 MKI and Mirage 2000 were tasked to intercept the intruding Pakistan Air Force aircraft. The Pakistan Air Force aircraft attempting to target our military installations were intercepted by the IAF fighter aircraft, which foiled their attack. Although PAF bombs have fallen in the Indian Army formation compounds, however, they were unable to cause any damage to our military installations. In the aerial combat that ensued, one F-16 of Pakistan Air Force was shot down by an IAF MiG-21 Bison aircraft. The F-16 crashed and fell across the line of control in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The IAF lost one MiG-21 in the aerial engagement, and though the pilot ejected safely, his parachute drifted into the Pakistan-occupied J&K, where he was taken into custody by the Pakistan Army. There have been many factually incorrect statements that have been made by Pakistan. The first blatant disinformation was that 2 IAF aircraft were shot down by Pakistan and 3 pilots of Indian Air Force were down. This figure was later revised downwards to 2 IAF aircraft and 2 pilots. The fact, however, is that Indian Army units had reported sighting 2 parachutes falling in POJ&K, which were of 2 F-16 pilots, the aircraft which was shot down by the MiG-21. Pakistan later in the evening changed its statement to say that 1 Indian pilot was in their custody. Therefore, it was only by late evening that Pakistan accepted the fact. Secondly, Pakistan claimed that they intentionally dropped weapons in open space where there was no human presence or military posts. The fact is that Pakistan Air Force aircraft targeted military installations. However, they were intercepted by IAF fighter aircraft which thwarted their plans. Although PAF bombs have fallen in Indian Army formation compounds, however, they were unable to cause any significant damage to our military installations due to a swift IAF response. Pakistan also stated that no F-16s were used in the operation and no Pakistani plane was downed by Indian Air Force. There is enough evidence to show that F-16s were used in this mission through the electronic signatures, and thereafter the Pakistan is trying to hide this fact. Also, parts of AMRAAM air-to-air missile, which is carried only on the Pakistan F-16s, was recovered east of Rajouri within the Indian territory. Therefore, the fact remains that one F-16 of PAF was shot down by IAF MiG-21 Bison. IAF remains ever vigilant, ready and committed to take on any eventuality. IAF has also learned that Pakistan has announced that Wing Commander Abhinandan will be returned to India tomorrow. IAF is happy and looks forward to return of Wing Commander Abhinandan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Major General Bahal to kindly give the Army statement.
Jai Hind and good evening to everyone. In response to the counter-terrorist strike by the Indian Air Force, Pakistan Army first resorted to unprovoked ceasefire violations, as you are aware, in Sundarbani, Bimbar Gali, Naushera and Krishna Ghati sectors on 26th February, with effect from 5 o'clock in the evening and again during the night. This was responded to by the Indian Army in a befitting and appropriate manner. As my Air Force counterpart has elaborated, on 27th February 19, the Pakistan Air Force attempted to target our military establishments in J&K. Specifically, they targeted a brigade headquarter, a battalion headquarter, our defences and a logistic installation. However, given the high level of preparedness along the line of control and the immediate and punitive response given by our own forces, the Pakistan Air Force's designs were foiled. We continue to maintain strict vigil along both the line of control and the IB sector. Our ground-based air defense weapon systems have been put on high alert all along the line of control and also in some parts of the IB. Our mechanized forces have also been placed on standby. I wish to assure the nation that we are fully prepared and in a heightened state of readiness to respond to any provocation by Pakistan. Despite the turn of events, as you all are aware, the Indian Army is committed to maintaining peace and stability in the region and will continue to act against agencies who harbour inimical designs against India and the citizens of our country. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Admiral Gujral, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Indian Navy is deployed in a high state of readiness and remains poised in all three dimensions: on surface, undersea, and in air, to deter, prevent, and defeat any misadventure by Pakistan in the maritime domain. I can assure you of a resolute, swift, and strong response by the Navy when needed. We stand as one with the Army and Air Force to ensure the safety and security of our nation and our citizens. Jai Hind.
So a very important press briefing there, a press briefing pointing out that India is fully prepared to retaliate to any aggression. But importantly, diplomatically, there's been major breakthroughs happening as well. The UAE Crown Prince has spoken to both the Indian Prime Minister and the Pakistani Prime Ministers. Nidhi has more details. Nidhi, really it's been also about behind the scenes diplomatic negotiations with the UAE, Saudi Arabia, the US all playing a key role. Tell us more about this important phone call by the Crown Prince of the UAE to both Prime Ministers.
Well, Sonia, the official Twitter handle of Mohammed bin Zayed has just announced a few minutes ago that the Crown Prince of the UAE made telephone calls to the Indian and Pakistani Prime Ministers, stressing the importance of dealing wisely with recent developments and giving priority to dialogue and communication. We've also been hearing for the last 24 hours that not just the UAE, but of course the Americans, the Saudis have been very actively involved in trying to get both countries to de-escalate. Donald Trump, the President of the United States, pretty much gave it away this morning when he said that he was expecting some attractive news on the India-Pakistan front, and was very clear that the US, was mediating. There are reports of a 25-minute phone call between the U.S. Secretary of State and NSA Ajit Doval as well this morning. In addition to that, we've been hearing a lot about the Saudis really trying to push for de-escalation, something that they had actually publicly stated after the Pulwama attack. Interestingly, today, Saudi Arabia's foreign minister rushed to Islamabad with a quote-unquote special message from the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, to the Pakistani government. And we also saw, coincidentally, a meeting with the Prime Minister had here, the Saudi ambassador to India, calling on him in Delhi. So, in addition to that, Sonia, there are other countries which have called for restraint, and they would all have been working the phones, whether it is France, the UK, and possibly China as well. I'm not hearing so much on the China front. China has publicly called for restraint. Not yet clear whether they actually, work the phones. But it's clear that there was a lot of international pressure on Pakistan to find a way to diffuse this. Pakistan would have had to return our pilot anyway as per the Geneva Convention. The question really was when. Last time we had a pilot held captive was when it happened during Kargil. It took 8 days to have him sent back. This time there was clearly a feeling that India was possibly going to look to strike again, and that the only way that Pakistan could get out of this really was to hand him back as soon as possible. So a lot of this international pressure behind the scenes really seems to have helped. I may add here that India doesn't normally like to admit any third-party intervention or mediation or any help from other countries, at least not publicly, but we do know that behind the scenes a lot has been happening.
Nidhi Razdan there, thanks very much. And of course, the indications of that international pressure were revealed by Donald Trump himself when he was having that meeting in Hanoi with Kim Jong-un. And at the press briefing, he revealed some attractive news coming up vis-a-vis India-Pakistan. He said they've been having a go at each other, and that actually set off in motion the details and for us to expect that good news. And later on, of course, we had Prime Minister Imran Khan also then finally revealing it. Take a look at how it all unfolded.
I think reasonably attractive news from Pakistan and India. They've been going at it, and we've been involved in trying to have them stop. And we have some reasonably decent news. I think hopefully that's going to be coming to an end. It's been going on for a long time, decades and decades. There's a lot of dislike, unfortunately. So we've been in the middle trying to help them both out, see if we can get some organization and some peace, and I think probably that's going to be happening.
जब दुश्मन भारत को अस्थिर करने की साजिश करता है, जब आतंकी हमला करता है, तो उनका एक मकसद ये भी होता है कि हमारी प्रगति रुक जाए, हमारी गति रुक जाए, हमारा देश थम जाए। उनके इस मकसद के सामने हर भारतीय को दीवान बनकर के, चट्टान बनकर के खड़ा होना है। उन्हें दिखाना है कि न ये देश रुकेगा, न देश की प्रगति थमेगी। पराक्रमी कभी ये नहीं सोचता कि चलो बहुत हो गया, अब सो जाओ। यह नहीं चल सकता। हमें जीवन के हर क्षेत्र में पराक्रमी होना है, विकास की नई ऊंचाइयों को छूना है, प्रगति के नए कीर्तिमान बनाने हैं। देश के भीतर और देश की सीमा पर दिन रात एक करके एक एक वीर बेटे और वीर बेटी के प्रति हम कृतज्ञ हैं। हमारी सेनाओं के सामर्थ्य पर हमें भरोसा है और इसलिए बहुत आवश्यक है कि कुछ भी ऐसा न हो जिससे उनके मनोबल पर आंच आए या हमारे दुश्मनों को हमारे पर उंगली उठाने का मौका मिल जाए। इंडिया विल फाइट एज वन, इंडिया विल विन एज वन।
सॉरी, मैं एक चीज कहनी भूल गया एंड में। हिंदुस्तान का पायलट हमने पकड़ा हुआ है। हम एज ए पीस जेस्टर हम उसको कल रिहा करने लगे हैं हिंदुस्तान को वापस। ये भी मैं सुनता रहता हूं कि इंडियन पॉलिटिशियन जी न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल कर रहा है पाकिस्तान। मुझे इसकी कोई समझ नहीं आ रही है, क्या मतलब न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल कर रहा है। मैं आज सबके सामने ये कहना चाहता हूं कि देखिए, पाकिस्तान अमन चाहता है। पाकिस्तान आज जिधर खड़ा है, हमारी सिर्फ एक इंटरेस्ट है कि हमारे खत्ते में स्टेबिलिटी हो, अमन हो, ताकि हम अपनी जो असल काम है एक हुकूमत का कि लोगों को गुर्बत से निकालें। ये जो टेंशन है ये ना पाकिस्तान को फ़ायदा देती है ना हिंदुस्तान को फ़ायदा देती है। आज हिंदुस्तान को नरेंद्र मोदी को पैगाम देना चाहता हूं कि देखें, किसी को भी उस इंतहा की तरफ ना धकेलें, क्योंकि ये जो आगे जा रही है, और मुझे पता है क्योंकि हमारी प्रिपरेशंस हैं, मुझे पता है कि पाकिस्तान की फ़ौज कितनी प्रिपेयर्ड और किधर खड़ी है। मुझे ये भी पता है कि कल रात एक था कि शायद पाकिस्तान के ऊपर किसी तरह का मिसाइल अटैक किया जाए, वो फिर बाद में डिफ्यूज़ हो गया। तो उसकी रिटेलिएशन के लिए भी मुझे पता है कि हमारी फ़ौज किधर खड़ी थी। इसलिए मैं आज कह रहा हूँ, क्योंकि मुझे पता है, मैं ये आज हिंदुस्तान को इस प्लेटफॉर्म से कह रहा हूँ कि इससे आगे ना लेके जाएं। मैंने कल भी कोशिश की नरेंद्र मोदी से बात करने की और सिर्फ ये डी-एस्केलेट करने के लिए, और मैं ये भी उम्मीद रखता हूँ कि इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी भी अपना पार्ट प्ले करेगी इस जिधर आज हम खड़े हैं, इससे ज्यादा सिचुएशन आगे एस्केलेट ना करें। शुक्रिया।
So look at the very interesting contrast there. India making it very clear, Prime Minister Modi, and in fact, again, government sources tell us this is part of a deliberate strategy. It's business as usual. He's addressing political meetings as well. Hasn't actually said anything on pilot Abhinandan so far. Again, that's part of a government strategy, they say, to make the point that India is not bending. They're focused on what their core goal is. And Vishnu, you were briefed earlier on that as well, especially also the reaction to what the Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan said about peace gestures, and he wants the international community to bring down escalation. India has a very different strategy at this point. Tell us more on what you were told.
Well, the Indian strategy is absolutely clear. For starters, there was no question of Abhinandan being used as part of any deal. In fact, this statement was made to us even before the Pakistani Prime Minister made his remark saying that Abhinandan would be released. So India's position is very clear on this. It's the same position that, look, our battle here is against terrorism. Pakistan has done nothing against terrorism. They've in fact escalated the entire crisis against India by trying to hit military targets. India did not hit a military target. And that there was, while India wanted Abhinandan back and unhurt, there was no question of India's position being changed on the basis of what Pakistan was doing. They also spoke about the psychosis, the information psychosis that Pakistan was trying to create, a psychosis of fear, in fact, and that they were doing on the basis of shutting down their airspace. India never shut it down. Shutting down the Samjhauta Express, India never did it at that stage. The tweet suggesting that the Indian Navy was actually steaming towards Karachi when nothing of the sort happened, and other tweets that messages suggesting that India was on the verge of launching missile attacks yesterday or early this morning, when in fact there was no chance of that happening at all. But the point that India has been trying to make, that look, one way or the other, our message has gone across to the international community, particularly the P3, which have now moved a UN resolution against the Jaish-e-Mohammed. But we are joined at this stage by Air Chief Marshal Anil Yashwant Tipnis. He was the Air Chief during the Kargil War. Air Chief Marshal, good to speak to you. We've brought you details today of the air encounter that took place, one of the most intense in recent times. What does it mean, sir, for 8 Indian Air Force fighter jets to intercept 24 Pakistan Air Force jets which came in or were trying to come in?
Thank you. I assume that I am speaking to Vishnu. Is that right? Whoever
yes,
the anchor,
yes,
may
sir.
I
Go
request
ahead,
you 30 seconds to let me just express my sentiment in the approach to the present situation that we as Indians need to follow. And particularly the channels, I feel that it is very, very important that as an elder you listen to me. You know, the way we are talking on television, all over the place, our voices, decibels are very high, our tones are strident, our vocabulary and our phrases are hyperbole. We need to tone down. What has happened is that we are in fact the ones who have been wronged. We are the ones who have been exercising restraint. But the way we are projecting ourselves is anything but that. So it is important that we restrain ourselves even in the way we talk and project ourselves. Thank you. Having said that, let me proceed. Now today's air action, I mean, I was astounded that there were as many as 24 Pakistani aircraft coming towards Indian territory, and those were responded by 8. Now first of all, what does 24 mean? One is, I mean, let me ask you this, how do we know, of course, there are 24 aircraft? It is because these aircraft, as they were projected on somebody's sketching that he had done, you know, seem to be all packed together, and it appears as though they are all tightly formatting together. In fact, it would not have been so. They have been laterally separated, they would have been longitudinally separated, and they would have been separated in the vertical, because they would not project themselves as one target, but place them all over the place, all over the entire area. Now, what would be their target? What would be their intention to come with 24 aircraft? When we went with 12 Mirages day before yesterday, our intent was very clear that there were 3 or 4 of these terrorist camps that we wanted to destroy. Now, of course, all were not attack aircraft. There were some escorts, I believe. Some would have been some electronic warfare equipped aircraft. So it was a composite aircraft like this, composite formation like this. Now, when 24 aircraft come, I heard somebody say, one of the military officers, I think the person who probably briefed at South Block, that they dropped their bombs, you know, in an army installation, you know, indicating that probably that was the target. I feel that, you know, we have to do an assessment. I do feel that the Air Force was very muted in its briefing, and for very good reason. Because, you know, we realize that there is really a large force coming this way. And I would say, you know, Rajokri, and if they are coming towards the valley, what has happened to Pakistan? Pakistan, you know, they have been totally caught napping by our attack on these terrorist attacks. There was no reaction from them. Our attacks were successful, and we got away absolutely clean. Now, when what should be the response? Now, the response has to be, you know, when our response to what happened at Pulwama was manifold than what they did to Pulwama. And therefore, now they want to show the same thing. And now they want to teach the Air Force a lesson, because it is the Air Force which did this action. And I suspect that their targets were in fact Avantipur and Srinagar airfields. And the Air Force will not tell you this. And I want to tell you this now, if 24 aircraft versus 8 aircraft. They have come well, they are as prepared as us. Would they turn back? So what is the reason for them to turn back and not continue with their mission that they had undertaken? Because they knew as soon as that mission is aborted, they have shown that it's the very purpose of their attack has been defeated. Now, so I believe they realized that the Indian air defense is so alert that we detected them well in time. We didn't have to wait for them to come into our territory before we reacted. So we are really at a high level of preparedness, and it speaks well of the Air Force.
Right.
And that is why they turned back.
I take the point you're
that is why they turned back.
And all of the details that you have at this stage. Thank you very much. We're going to take a short break at this juncture and be back with a lot more.
Welcome back to our special programming. We're joined, of course, by Vishnu Amitoj and our special guest, ex-Air Chief Air Marshal Tipnis, who was, of course, Air Marshal also at the time of the Kargil War. Amitoj.
All right, so I had a question for you. Vishnu and me were discussing just a short while back. You had some points to make about the press conference that took place, in a sense, from the defense spokespersons or representatives. The question that we have is, that was kind of sidestepped by the representatives. Do you welcome the return of Wing Commander Abhinandan?
Of course. Sorry, of course we welcome him. I mean, and it was incumbent on Pakistan to return him as quickly as possible without seeing that any harm is done to him. So there is no favor, but we certainly need to acknowledge that yes, they are following the Geneva Convention and they are returning this. So I don't think we should,
Air Chief, I just wanted to add to what Amitoj was asking.
It's a huge,
the transfer of prisoners between India and Pakistan,
yes.
Air Chief, has been problematic in the past. During the 1971
yes.
war, we've still got families over here
yes.
who believe that, they've got their loved ones in Pakistani jails. Of course, we were lucky during the Kargil war when Nachiketa did come back after 8 days. Were you worried that this might be a long drawn-out affair with Wing Commander Abhinandan?
No, I was not, my gut feeling was that, the conditions as they exist today internationally and the situation that Pakistan finds itself in, they couldn't play hardball as they did earlier in doing what is required to be done according to the Geneva Convention. I think they were on the back foot and they were reeling. I mean, not they were, they are actually reeling. And they have to show that, they are acting sensibly, they are acting maturely, as is expected of a nation in the Committee of Nations. So I'm not surprised really. The pressure was much too high on them, and if they had harmed this wing commander, I do believe that the locals must have punished him. At least some of the videos, I don't know whether they are right or not, but they are more out of emotion, and I don't think that is the official government policy, to harm soldiers, although they have been doing it. And in this instance, I expect that they want him to come back here as quickly as possible to try and win as much sympathy from the rest of the world. But I don't think it is any gesture of positiveness towards India.
This is Sunetra.
Yes, go ahead.
This is Sunetra. I just wanted to ask you before you go. I know that you don't want to be part of the panel. I just wanted to ask you. There are some people who are a little disappointed that the representatives of the three services that came there, they said that there is evidence, because there's been a lot of speculation about what was the damage that we were able to do at the terror camp. They said now it's up to the government. Some people feel that because the Air Force carried out the operation, they could have revealed that evidence. What do you make of that, sir?
There is definitely even the way that you, after all, every Air Force does what is called as, after attack reconnaissance. Now, under the prevailing conditions, what we could have done. When you do heavy attacks, as we did on those camps, remember there is a lot of debris, there's a lot of smoke, and it was during conditions of darkness. So optical cameras will not function. You have to use infrared, and even infrared gets diffused by smoke. So effectively, the photo reconnaissance aircraft, if they ever had along with them also, could have photographed before the attack, but after the attack, it would have been infructuous. It wouldn't have achieved any purpose. Now the question is, can we do this from satellites? Now, even if we had, for instance, the bomb going and hitting that place, I don't know whether they had cameras. It's quite possible they have got these cameras because such technology exists. But if you give evidence like this, it is also indicating, to the other side, what is the level of technology and skill that we possess. And these are confidential matters. You want to keep them, as unknown to the other side for as long as possible. So that's one of the reasons that it's not been done. That they know that, hey, listen, we can do this. These are the things we have to be careful about. And that is why I was just referring to these 24 aircraft earlier. The reason they turned back, because they realized the reaction was so fast, and they didn't know that who's watching them. Are there radars on ground, or is it AWACS in the air? And they realized that the entire operation is being monitored in real time by us. And therefore they turned back. And who will turn back 24 strong aircraft turning back in the face of 8? Impossible. And with superior aircraft. I mean, the F-16 is superior to the MiG-21 in its maneuverability. It's a far more agile aircraft. As a fighter aircraft, which look around is far greater than that for MiG-21, because MiG-21 was not meant for dogfights, but the Indian Air Force, with its ingenuity, has used this aircraft in purposes for which it was not designed. So they have turned back because they found that the odds are against them because of our vigilance, and the extent of losses they are likely to face. Now, as far as we certainly have got evidence on the aircraft that was shot down, the F-16, because as somebody said, I think the Air Force representative himself to the Air Vice Marshal Kapoor, that they have found the markings of AIM-120. Now, the AIM-120 is the prefix for this AMRAAM, which is the air-to-air missile, which in all the aircraft in the inventory of the Pakistan Air Force, the F-16 is the only one that carries this and is capable of launching it effectively. So it is a circumstantial evidence that the F-16 had launched this missile. I don't think we had any photographs of air-to-air to say that. And also remember, as Air Vice Marshal Kapoor pointed out, we identified the radar signature of the F-16. We have that information with us. We have that intelligence, and our EW systems are able to match this. Yes.
And of course, Air Chief Marshal, the two big takeaways from this. Now, of course, you were Air Chief during Kargil, and at that time also, sir, as you've said publicly, you had thought that perhaps India should carry out air strikes, and there was at that time international intervention to not let things escalate further. Now, we've seen the whole strategy really being redefined. Your views on that, sir, today, 2 days later after the airstrikes, and also one thing, the whole country was praying for Wing Commander Abhinandan's safe return. The way he conducted himself in custody, the way he really, the sense of pride everyone feels of him as a member of the Indian Armed Forces, of the Indian Air Force. Your views on that, sir, also. So the big change in the Indian strategy, you had recommended this earlier, now it's happened.
Let me tell you first about this. First, let me comment on Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman. I think he has done the country immensely proud. He was like an air warrior, as he should be. This is the kind of figure that you see only in Hollywood and Bollywood pictures, strutting along, when actually this is all make-believe. But when the reality is there, when you're being hurt, you're in pain, and there are 5 people kicking you from different directions, you're blindfolded. But his body language, the way he spoke, the few words I heard, I mean, it needs extraordinary guts and nerve. And he displayed it. And let me tell you this, it's not only, the capability of an aircraft that probably has now, got the Pakistan Air Force thinking, but when they have seen the way, our fighter pilots behave, they know that if they behave like this on the ground, My God, what they must be in the air. So the terrific message, there's a young fellow who's been shot down, that even after he's shot down, he's given the message that has done far greater damage to Pakistan than probably another aircraft being down would have done. So well done, very proud of you. As far as the other question that you asked, the earlier part of the question that you asked was that what is the circumstances seem to have changed between the Kargil war and this. Now, during Kargil, what had happened? The Pakistanis had come and occupied their post on the line of control and had come inside the line of control. So, if we attacked any of their positions as they had occupied, we were still operating within our line of control. Now, the best way, to have neutralized this, would have been to choke them by hit their logistics bases in the rear. And the Air Force was in a terrific position to do that. But the Prime Minister in his wisdom, Prime Minister Vajpayee, when the Air Force requested him, can we go ahead and do that, across the line of control, he held us back. And I think at that time it paid us huge amounts of dividends because we got the international opinion with us. Here the circumstances in the present the skirmish that we've had, it is these terrorist camps. Now, hitting these terrorist camps, by ground action, which would be, within 5 to 10 kilometers at the most, I expect. They will not be more than that. What are these? Yes. These are forward bases, these are forward launch bases. And at most of the time, unless a launch is underway, they would be undermanned or they would be not manned at all. So, harming them, yes, you would have heard those constructions, but I don't think you would have hit. So, therefore, we have gone deep inside them because what was our target? We said we want to neutralize the terrorists and the terrorist camps were deep inside Pakistan, not only in POK but beyond POK into Pakistan, which is outside POK, and we have hit them.
I think that's a very important point you mentioned, the depth in which the Indian Air Force actually struck. Air Chief Marshal, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's always a privilege to speak to you, and in this situation your views are absolutely invaluable. We're also joined by two senior diplomats at this stage, Mr. Shashank and Mr. Satish Chandra. Good to have both of you on the program. Mr. Chandra, let me come to you first. How is it important for us to realize that in as much as we value the release of the wing commander, the story, as it were, doesn't end with his release? Our goal remains the same. Pakistan has to stop terror. Do you believe enough has been done to ensure that that happens?
Before I comment on your query, I just wanted to make two very quick points. Number one, I think the Indian Air Force has done India proud, both in offense and defense. The second point, while I agree with much of what Air Marshal Tipnis, for whom I have the greatest esteem, has said, and I indeed agree with most of what he said, on one point I would like to differ from my experience with Pakistan and having dealt with them for years, is that usually they are pretty brutal with POWs, and this has been our historic experience. Now, coming to the other point that you are making about what are the next steps and how do we go forward, I do believe we are on the right track, and that track is that we must continue to mount pressure on Pakistan. This must be a whole of government response, economic, diplomatic, military when required, to further pressurize them, because they have not given us anything on terrorism. And they have not delivered anywhere on it. 26/11, Pulwama, JEM, LET, Hafiz Saeed, Masood Azhar, and these are all creatures of the Pakistani authorities, because when I was in Pakistan in the 1990s, Major General Nasirullah Babar approached me when I was High Commissioner there, asking for the release of Masood Azhar. So that's how intimate that relationship is, and I do hope that the government continues to hold fast and continues to mount pressure on Pakistan until such time as there is credible evidence that they are acting against terror and shutting down the infrastructure of terror. I don't think we should be taken in by moves, good as they are, such as the release of our pilot, Abhinandan. We welcome his release, as everyone has said, but this is Pakistan's obligation. Of course, they haven't fulfilled this obligation very often, and therefore this is a surprise which should be welcomed. But I think in terms of government policies, they must not change. We must continue pressurizing Pakistan.
Thank you, Mr. Chandra. That's an important point, especially the close relationship, as you put it, between the Pakistan establishment and Masood Azhar. In fact, we're also joined by former Foreign Secretary Shashankji. Mr. Shashank, when you look now at the negotiations that must have happened behind the scenes, and I don't want to use the word pressure here because it's really more about the world having a stake in de-escalating the current situation. Where do you think we are today? We saw President Trump's statement, the fact that Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj is tonight at the OIC meeting. Also, the Crown Prince of the UAE, Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister going to Pakistan. Where do you think we are today in terms of de-escalation and also in the recognition that Pakistan has to act on stopping terror from its territory?
Well, first of all, I agree with whatever Ambassador Satish Chandra has said about the Pakistani behavior. In fact, I feel that Pakistan perhaps thought that since they have an upper hand now with the Americans, on the negotiations with the Taliban for Afghanistan peace, therefore they could go around doing whatever they had been doing in the past also. So it was business as usual. Unfortunately, it is not business as usual, because what has happened is that President Trump has said that yes, he would like to withdraw the American soldiers, but he can bring them back, number one. Secondly, he would like Taliban to behave responsibly. Thirdly, he has also told the regional countries, which include UAE, Saudi Arabia, on the other hand, China, Russia, India and Pakistan, to make sure that Afghanistan is at peace, and the terrorists who were being encouraged from Pakistan to attack American troops in Afghanistan, that is not done at all. So that message has now come down to Pakistan very clearly, because they wanted to negotiate with us in return for Abhinandan's release. They wanted to negotiate with us as to how we can go back to the old pattern of terror and talks simultaneously. Now, they must understand that firstly, their Prime Minister Imran Khan wants to have a Naya Pakistan. The whole world wants to have a new kind of a region. India has earlier made a lot of proposals positively, but perhaps that was premature at that time, and Bajpayee ji had made several of these proposals of Insaniyat, Kashmiriyat and all kinds of things. You know, we wanted to bring all the regional countries together for connectivity and for economic prosperity. At that time it was premature, but now Pakistan should not lose this opportunity, and I think Ambassador Satish Chandra has said the right thing. Credible action, not just words. So therefore they must do that.
One of the things that's interesting that has emerged of late is the kind of international pressure that we've seen. Most recently of the Saudi Crown Prince, of him calling up. And also, of course, we heard all the statements coming in from President Trump and others. Is this, I have to ask you, Mr. Chandra, is this also an admission of the first time? Because as we know, traditionally, we don't like other people meddling in our affairs. Would you say this is a shift in a way of having acknowledgement from various countries that they intervened in this matter between India and Pakistan?
No, I think the point is that what is the nature of intervention? The nature of intervention is pressure, heightened pressure on Pakistan. And I think one reason why Pakistan or Imran Khan has said that he would be releasing our pilot is this international pressure. Also, another factor is that India today is very much stronger than it was 15, 20 years ago. We are becoming an important economic player. We have developed multifaceted relations with a wide variety of countries.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I think there's a slight audio problem, but I just want to bring in Vishnu on that aspect, and of course, Shashankji, you as well, because I think the biggest change actually from the last time has been the de-hyphenation of India and Pakistan internationally, and that is as far as America goes. And the biggest point of that, and I think Vishnu, you've also been talking to your sources on that, is the fact that the US, France, the UK are all pushing for UN Security Council resolution for declaring Masood Azhar an international terrorist. China is still the only one really in Pakistan's side, but there's been a huge global shift in the recognition of Pakistan's support of terrorism.
Absolutely, Sonia. In fact, the word that you use is exactly the way it is, the de-hyphenation of India and Pakistan. Today, the United States, which has been one of the biggest supporters of Pakistan throughout the 70s and the 80s, is one of India's biggest allies, if not our biggest strategic ally. The P3, the top three nations in that P5 group, or three of the 5 nations in the P5 group, moving a United Nations General Assembly resolution to have Maulana Masood Azhar declared a global terrorist. So that's something that really works, and it's an indicator of how much acceptance there is to India's core issue, which is that terrorism cannot work. We cannot be targeted by Pakistani-sponsored terrorism. Pakistan is a state which has consistently denied it supports terrorism. That's an unacceptable sort of statement from Pakistan, and Pakistan needs to walk the talk. And this international pressure is important. But the big issue over here is of China. On the one hand, we've got improving ties with China. On the one hand, there has been this massive de-escalation of China, of pressure between India and China at the Wuhan summit. I was there for that when Prime Minister Modi met President Xi. But on the issue of terrorism, China and India do not see eye to eye when it comes to Maulana Masood Azhar, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, and Pakistan. That remains an area of concern.
Right. Well, we're just going to discuss these issues more in our special programming. But I just want to look also, we just heard Air Chief Marshal Tipnis make that point, and really this is something the whole country has come about. Pakistan tried to release this as a propaganda video, but really India has saluted the bravery of Wing Commander Abhinandan even while he's in custody of the Pakistan Army. Now, NDTV actually spoke to Wing Commander Abhinandan, then a young flight lieutenant, in 2011. Let's just look at this brave young pilot.
Indian Air Force Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman, hands tied, bloodied face, being grilled by his Pakistani captors, but remarkably still calm and composed. The MiG-21 he was flying is believed to have crash-landed in POK, some 7 kilometers from the line of control, after a mid-air duel with the Pakistani Air Force. Abhinandan bailed out in time. Today, his father issued a statement saying, "Just look at the way he talked so bravely. A true soldier. We are so proud of him." Wing Commander Abhinandan has 16 years of experience. First commissioned in 2004. He flew a Sukhoi before moving up to a MiG-21.
Flight Lieutenant Abhinandan. And gentlemen, I hope you're hungry because this looks like it's just about enough.
In 2011, he featured on an NDTV Good Times show, Highway on My Plate. A flight lieutenant back then, he spoke of how teamwork was the most important thing for fighter pilots.
What really lets us do that is the kind of training that we've gone through. The fact that we are fighter pilots means that I trust Dusty with my life, he trusts me with his, and this is blind faith. There are no two ways about it. It doesn't matter whether you have 30 years of service or 10 years of service or like Dusty 4 years of service. It just doesn't matter.
Today, across India, prayers for this pilot, a hero's safe return.
What are some of the attributes that you think are important to be a SC-30 pilot?
Attitude.
But good attitude or bad attitude?
Good attitude. Bad attitude.
Bad attitude.